Howdy, partner, and welcome to your favorite preacher show, a podcast. Well, you did it. You may remember last time I told you when I was able to get 100 Facebook followers and 100 YouTube subscribers, I was going to tell you the worst joke I ever told. Well, believe it or not, this past week, I was able to reach 100 Facebook followers and 100 YouTube subscribers. So now I have to tell you that terrible joke. Now remember, it is a joke. And if you do not have a sense of humor, perhaps you should go outside and maybe check the mail or something. But it is a joke. Okay, it goes like this. There was this couple, a boy and a girl, and they dearly loved each other. They wanted to get married. But they were apprehensive because they both had a problem. The boy, the groom-to-be, went to his dad and said, "Dad, I really love that girl. I want to marry her, but as you know, I have a problem." And the dad said, "Yes, son, I know. It's your feet. They stink." So the boy said, "What can I do?" And so the dad said, "If you really want to marry this girl and you want it to work out, you're going to do something. So my advice is this: invest in Dr. Scholl's foot powder, you know, that deodorant stuff for feet, and use it throughout the day. In fact, get up first thing in the morning, wash your feet 2 or 3 times a day, and use that foot deodorant. And in fact, put it inside your socks and sleep with your socks on." The boy said, "Okay, Dad, I'll give it a try. Hopefully it'll work out." Well, meanwhile, the girl, she went to her mom and said, "Mom, you know, I really want to marry that boy. But as you well know, I have a problem." And the mama said, "Yes, daughter, you do have a problem. It's your breath. It stinks." So she said, "What am I going to do?" And the mama said, "This is what I would do if I were you. I would invest in Listerine, that really high-powered stuff, and buy it into gallons. Get gallons of it, so make sure you don't run out. And so after you marry this boy, gargle numerous times every day. In fact, first thing you do in the morning is gargle with Listerine. Clean your breath, clean your mouth. Maybe it'll work out." And so the boy and the girl, they took their folks' advice and they got married, and it was working out beautifully. The boy, he would use that foot deodorant. He'd wash his feet numerous times a day. And he would put that stuff inside of his socks, and he slept with his socks on. And so it was working out good. The bride, she followed the advice her mother gave her, and she invested in Listerine. She would get up first thing in the morning before she ever even looked at the boy. She would go in and clean up her mouth, brush her teeth for maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes, 20 maybe. And then she would gargle, and she would gargle throughout the day with that high-powered Listerine. And it was working out beautifully. Until one night, everything broke down. The boy, he woke up in a cold sweat. Somehow, during the night, one of his socks had come off. And so he's terrified. He's squirming around trying to find that sock. And then all of a sudden, he wakes up his bride, and she, right in his face, without even thinking about it, said, "What are you doing?" And the boy said, "Darling, something terrible has happened. I think you swallowed one of my socks." Oh, man. That is the worst joke I ever told. It's a joke. Keep that in mind. It is just a joke. I hope you can remember that. I will say this, friend. All joking aside, A sense of humor will help you in this world, especially when you're having problems. And even when you're not having problems, a sense of humor will help you. The wise man said in Proverbs 17, verse 22, I believe it is. Yes. He said, a joyful heart is good medicine, but a broken spirit dries up the bones. In this life, you're going to have problems. I mean, let's face it. In this life, you're going to have problems. But if you can maintain a sense of humor, it will help you as you deal with your problems. It won't make problems go away. Being all down in the mouth won't make problems go away. I've said this before, I'll say it again. The good Lord has blessed me with a sense of humor, and it has been a blessing to me. And I know what it's like to have problems. I went for years and really never had any problems, never had any health problems. Things just seemingly went my way, and then about 3 years ago, the worst possible thing, I think maybe the worst possible thing, happened. My good wife, she and I have been married 46 years, Sue, she got sick and didn't recover. She passed away. And it was a nightmare for me and my son as well, who has just been a tremendous blessing to me. But through it all, I have maintained somewhat of a sense of humor in spite of everything. And I've had to deal with health problems. As I've mentioned to you several times, I've been battling prostate cancer, but according to the doctors, I'm on the other side of that. And now it's just a matter of recovery. And I'm very grateful for that, very thankful to God for his blessings and all the help Christian people have been to me. But I have noticed, even in my own life, when I can maintain somewhat of a sense of humor, it has made life easier to bear those burdens. James said in James chapter 5, verse 13, is anyone among you suffering? Then he must pray. Is anyone cheerful? He is to sing praises. Yes, my friend, in this life, there are always going to be problems. It just goes with the territory. It's always going to be problems. And James, the writer James, in the book of James, in the Bible, acknowledged that. He said there's always going to be problems. There are always going to be circumstances. And he said, when things aren't going your way, what should you do? Pray. The Lord says, come to me, and I will help you. And so we should pray and ask God to help us. On the other hand, when things aren't going your way, James said what? He said, sing praises to the Lord. You got something to praise? You got something to rejoice over? Do it. Years ago, I heard this preacher, an older preacher. He, I think, preached in Texas, but I heard him preach several times, Charles Hodge. And he said this in a sermon, and it has stayed with me. He said, in this life, you're going to cry a lot. You're going to hopefully be able to laugh a lot. He said, if you can laugh more than cry, then you will have been able to live a successful life. Well, hopefully that has been the case with you, and if it is, then that is a blessing. Before I close, I want you to think about this. In this life, again, there's always going to be problems. When our Lord was giving the Sermon on the Mount, he said this in Matthew chapter 7, beginning with verse 24. Jesus said, therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and acts on them may be compared to a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and slammed against that house, and yet it did not fall, for it had been founded on the rock. Everyone who hears these words of mine and does not act on them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. The rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and slammed against that house, and it fell, and great was its fall. Jesus said the storms of life are coming, and they're coming for all of us. It doesn't matter if you are a believer or if you are not a believer. It doesn't matter what kind of foundation you're building on. If you are building on the foundation of Jesus and his message found in the Bible, or whether you're building on some other kind of philosophy, life is going to always present challenges. There are always the storms of life coming. And yet, the hope that all of us have as believers is this: when the storms come, we do have a foundation. We have something that we can stand on that will keep us steady during those storms, those trials of life, and see us through. And so, my friend, when you face the ups and downs of life, remember you need help. And trust the Lord for his help and his blessings. But when things are going well for you, enjoy it. Be able to learn to laugh. Enjoy life. When you have the opportunity, enjoy life. Well, according to the clock on the wall, it is 1:32 in the afternoon. 1:32 in the afternoon. It's just a beautiful day outside. According to the weather forecasters, it could be some storms rolling in tonight, and tomorrow is supposed to be cooler, more like fall weather. But it's beautiful out there right now. I'm thinking I might go out there and just enjoy a bit of it. The University of Tennessee Volunteers take on the Tide tonight. The Volunteers take on the Tide tonight, so I guess I'll have to set up and watch the Volunteers hopefully turn back the tide, and hopefully they will. By the way, talking about jokes, I heard this story. I thought I would share it with you. Again, this is just a joke. Remember that it is just a joke. But years ago, I was invited to preach for this church in Florence, Alabama. They invited me down to speak. Sue and I went down to visit that congregation. It was a very good congregation. People there treated Sue and me very nice for that weekend. They were looking for a preacher, but then they didn't hire me. Maybe it was because of this joke I told. But the Sunday morning before the sermon I got up to preach, I said, I want to tell you this story about these two fellows. They got into serious trouble. One was a Tennessee fan, the other an Alabama fan. And they got into serious trouble, really serious trouble. And as a result of it, they were going to be executed. Well, the Lord came to the Tennessee fan and said, do you have a final request? And the Tennessee fan says, yes, I do. I want to hear Rocky Top one more time before I die. So he said, okay, we will arrange that. And then he turns to the Alabama fan and said, do you have a final request? And he said, yes, by all means, kill me first. A joke. Well, at the end of the services, I'm standing at the door greeting people as they go out. And I noticed this young woman looked like, I don't know, maybe 35 years old, really sharply dressed, very attractive woman. I could tell she had something on her mind. She looked like a very educated person as well. So I thought, maybe she's got a Bible question or something. So she walks up to me and she says, I was offended by that joke you told. I said, you were? She said, yeah, I was offended by that joke. And I said, why? She said, I don't think you should make light of people who are about to be executed. Oh. Well, anyway, I told her, I said, well, it was a joke. I wasn't trying to make light of anybody who's about to be executed. And she would not let go. She said, what do you think Jesus would do in a case like that? You think he would make fun of people who are about to be executed? And finally, I just said, look, sister, you're just going to have to move on. I'm sorry if it offended you. But I learned the hard way that you never know how people are going to receive a joke, something that you find humorous. So you have to be always on guard. You have to be very careful. And you never want to do something that you think might offend somebody. And I can remember when Sue was here. And this was one of the reasons why she was such a blessing to me. Anything that I had some doubts about, even if it involved a shirt that I thought needed to be ironed, I'd always say, Sue, what do you think about this joke? Or what do you think about this illustration? Or what do you think about this shirt? You think it needs ironing? And if she says yes, then I'd say, okay, I'll iron this shirt, or will you do it for me? And then if I told her a joke or something, and I said I'm thinking about using it, she said, I don't know, somebody might be offended by it. Well, I wouldn't do it because I always trusted her judgment. Well, anyway, it's always a good thing to be careful, to be cautious. And after saying all that, I hope none of you will be offended by these silly jokes that I have shared with you. And again, remember this, friend. You're going to have the ups and downs of life. And as a result of that, one of the things that you can do to help yourself is to maintain a sense of humor. It will help you. And so, in closing, remember as always, from Psalm 118, verse 24, this is the day which the Lord hath made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. I hope that you will have a wonderful day, a wonderful evening, and a wonderful Lord's Day tomorrow. Until next time.